little
Welcome back,
technical
everybody.
difficulties, but we are here now, finally. So this is the Merrill Chandler and Jennifer Hammond show. We do every Wednesday about your credit score, about your funding, and exactly what you need to know to be a sophisticated funding hacker. And this is not
Yes.
just being a consumer, you're right?
Yes. We want to be sophisticated borrowers, right? We want to be those strategic borrowers, because one of the things that's so important for all of us to remember is that we can either be prey or partners. They're going to give us a credit card, 22% interest, and suck the life force out of our finances, or if we're, and so we're prey over there. But if we know what we're doing, if we are a strategic borrower, then think about credit lines and business loans, business lines of credit. Those are prime plus 1%, 1.5%, and it's 10 times the approval amount with 1/10 the cost, right? So
Right.
think about it. Where do we want to land? Do they want to partner with us because we're sophisticated, intelligent borrowers, or are they just going to take advantage of us paying interest, right?
And
So
so this
that's
is where
the whole framework.
I was going to say it's so painful to be ignorant in this space with anything to do with finances in general, specifically with your credit score. I want to talk about that a little bit, because one thing that the hot topic for this week is 3 things that you need to know to protect your credit score when moving. And so whether you're moving and you're renting, or you're moving and you're buying, or whatever you're doing, this is a time where unfortunately you become very vulnerable, and
Yes.
vulnerable for all sorts of reasons. And we won't even go into the criminal people who try to take advantage of this time, but there's all sorts of other things that'll happen that could really, I mean, you could get all sorts of things, because again, mail it might not get forwarded. You may miss something and you thought everything was on automatic payment. And again, are you going back through? So let's talk about the top 3 things that people need to know to protect their credit score, to protect their fundability in the future when they're
Yes.
moving this vulnerable time.
All right, perfect. This is so relevant, because you would not believe how many students and clients that come to me and like, I had 800 plus credit scores. My fundability was awesome. And now I'm at 650. I drop 100 plus points because I have a $39 Comcast bill that they say I didn't pay. So let's cover some of these things. First thing I want to talk about is your address. Mail forwarding, think of it as a convenience that you don't count on. All right. You never, ever want to depend on the mail forwarding system. Here's a couple of reasons why. First of all, many creditors, utility companies, service providers will have on their envelopes, do not forward, address correction requested, because they want your real address. The problem is if they mail you a final bill and that final bill says, no, do not forward, address correction requested, it'll go back to now remember, your 30-day late clock is ticking, right? It's going to go back to the lender. It's going to end up in a bin. I have seen some of these for local retailers, and I just asked them, hey, in the corporate offices here in Salt Lake, where do these end up? And there's literally bins sitting there, and they got some $8-9 an hour employee just sorting through it and entering in the new address to send you a new bill. Meanwhile, 60 to 90 days goes by, and you now have a collection on your credit profile. They didn't tell you. So address correction, they want the new address rather than to honor your credit profile. Problem is, many of these service providers, the Comcasts of the world, the Googles of the world, do not care about your credit profile. They care about their accurate records 90 days after the fact, right? So if you know, the best solve for this is to make sure that you know what your new address is going to be before you move. You use post office forwarding after you have changed every single one of your service provider addresses including the utilities that you are going to depend on, that you think you're paying off. Change the mailing address so that it comes to you for any final bills. Now, this is the next one that I want to cover is kind of complex, but it's the soul crushing problem we run into when we move. Many of our utilities and service providers bill in arrears. You think you're paying for the services already rendered, when in fact, if let's say that you're moving on the 10th, your bill ends on the 30th, you pay what you believe is the final bill, and then they prorate those last 10 days and send it to an address that depends on either forwarding happening or do not forward address correction requested. You now have a leftover bill for even one day. The leftover bill says that you are now late. And since you don't have a new address on their records, you're going to get hit with a collection account. And so vital that we change all of the addresses of our current utilities. And then when they shut it down, do it. Now, the other solve for this is when you call up your utilities. This is what sucks, and why we have to protect our own profiles. You have to say, please cut off my service, to use our previous example, on the 10th. Will you please give me my prorated advanced cost, the advanced billing for what I haven't used yet, because I've got this 10 days since the bill ends on the 30th. Yeah. You're going to bill me for 10 days. Will you please tell me what that is? Now, I highly suggest, I do this myself, I highly suggest, put another $100, pay it more than you owe, because they may come up with, they may shut it down on the 12th. You asked them to shut it down on the 10th, but they're not, they win. They're going to bill you for the 12 days, and they're going to crush the soul for $6. They're going to crush the soul of your profile.
I was just going to say,
money.
The amount of damage it does for that $6, for that $39 is unbelievable when it's just that simple. But again, follow up. And I don't care how many times you call them, just like you said, call and wait till you get the answer 3 times, the same answer 3 times, because you want to know what the final bill is, but you also need to just overpay a little bit. It's better for them to have to send you a check, because
and they will. They will, because here's what's interesting. There are statutes that fault them for damages if they don't pay you back overpayment. There are not statutes for ruining your credit.
Right. Exactly.
So overpay and let them find you, because you will have already changed what we call in the Get Fundable universe, the Fundability universe, your PBID, your personal borrower identity. You have to change your personal borrower identity with all of your credit accounts that report on your profile and all of your service providers. Give them the new address. And then once you give it to them, call up and say, could you please tell me what my address is? And if they read the old address, they didn't do it right. You got to call until you get confirmation that that address has been changed, and then they will mail it to your new address. You will get the appropriate $39 bill. You'll be like, oh, it was a couple of extra days. I'll pay this. And then close it out. But if there's a piece of interest, or they Comcast charge you for the box, or whatever's going on, you have to protect you, guys. You have to protect you. Nobody's got your back. I mean, except Jennifer and me, we've got your back, but we don't have any power over your accounts. So forewarned is forearmed. You must take care of this. Now, the last one that I want to cover here is breaking leases. Breaking leases. Sometimes things come up where let's say you have a year lease, and that year lease is actually, so you and I are on the same page, that year lease is a promissory note. It's a loan, and each of your rents pay a payment towards that loan. If you don't make all your payments, you are not paid as agreed for that loan, and therefore they can collect from you even if you don't finish the lease. You didn't pay the loan, not paid as agreed. It will report, most of them will report against you, and now you crush the soul of your profile and destroy your fundability because of an emergency. So this doesn't always work, but it works much of the time. You must go to, first of all, hopefully you have a powerful reason why you need to move, right? Let's say somebody has broken in to your current residence and they are a fan of yours and they're stalking you and you need to move to a gated community. Let's just pretend that that's a scenario, right? Well, you have a right within the lease for personal harm or emergency situations. Now, backing up a little further, you got to make sure that in your lease that you have protections for needing to move for work purposes. If they transfer you to San Francisco and you're in New York, you get to break the lease. That needs to be in the lease before you sign it. That for personal safety reasons, you can break the lease. And for health reasons, work transfer, personal safety, and health reasons are the three main things that need to be in that lease. It's super simple to have that language as an amendment if they don't already have it in your lease. But then you have to substantiate. Here's a letter from my boss saying I'm getting ready to move. Or your health reason, your doctor's orders, you got to move to the south because your rheumatoid arthritis in the Great White North is killing you, right? You need to have doctor's notice, or a police report is usually acceptable evidence of personal safety or trying to avoid personal harm. These have to be. Now, some landlords are cool that if it's not in the lease and you've already signed your lease, that most of them will say, find somebody to rent this property and or sublet it upon their approval, and I will let you out of it. Or sometimes, and I'm going to tell you right now, sometimes you may need to pay the final 2 or 3 months, whatever it is, before you break your lease, because you didn't know this until soon enough. It is worth, I promise, it is worth paying double rent to not ruin your credit for the next 7+ years because you didn't know the rules of the game yet. Now, it's not your fault, but that's why we do these weekly engagements on the Jennifer and Merrill show, is that so that we can cover this type of stuff and you can know how to plan for the future. For every rental opportunity you have in the future, this is end game stuff. This changes the game for you guys. And I want you to feel like you have the tools and the knowledge to protect yourself. So there are a few other nuances here, but those are the big ones. Utilities and service providers and your credit accounts, change the address beforehand and overpay. I mean, whatever your bill, if your bill has been $75, give them 2 times $75 so that they have that extra room, and hit that account credit so that they're not hitting your credit profile. Ooh, yep. That was kind of cool. Hit the account credit instead of hit your credit profile. And then your address, make sure you forward your addresses, for mail forwarding is the last priority, the last important thing to do. Change every single one of them. Now, just a final, I do want to cover this one as a final nuance. You must, when it comes to your auto drafts, you guys already need, there are several good apps that do this. Make sure you inventory your auto drafts, because if you don't change, here's kind of the evil domino effect. If you don't change a lender's address to the new one before you move, then they may put a hold on your account because they can't find you.
Yep.
And they may not draft your account, auto draft your accounts, because they don't know if fraud's going on. They don't know the new address. Why is this person on the credit profile showing a Florida address instead of a DC address? We have her as a DC address. Fraud alert, fraud alert.
Yep.
You got to do everything up front, you guys, and make sure that your auto drafts are inventoried and that you know when those auto drafts are going to happen, and keep them updated.
Absolutely. Well, I know we're already out of time, but for all of you, remember next week we'll be here again. So send us your questions and we'll answer your questions live on the show. Every week we're going to be talking about credit scores, fundability, if you want business lines of credit, you name it, but how to be a professional, how to not be stepping, as we say so politely, on landmines in the funding and credit score world that's out there. So Merrill, it's such a pleasure. I'm going to ask you, as you know, I love, as we end each show, to end with a yay as we go off air. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's do it. 3, 2, 1. Yay!
Yay! Woo! Yay!
Hi, I'm Jack Canfield. You may know me as the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the